Friend. All right, the read on all this with America Rising Executive Director Alexander Smith, my buddy Connell McShane, hardest working man in show business, and radio show host Ben Kissel. Alexander, who takes the heat for this? Because I think average Americans say, well, Republicans, you're in charge, you run the show. We know the parliamentary logistics and what's involved here, but I think a lot of people aren't in the weeds. They just seem to think, here are those Republicans.
Well, look, I think that if you're one of the 10 Democratic senators that comes from a state that President Trump won in the 2016 election, 5 of those states he won by double digits, you're thinking quite differently, and your constituents are thinking quite differently. The bottom line is that in the Senate, you need 60 votes. And the fact that Chuck Schumer is not allowing any of his members to cross party lines to get this done, I think is very telling for the individual.
With at least 3 of his senators, right?
Well, sure, but I think that this is something where the president is staying back from Mar-a-Lago. He's personally making the calls. A lot of the hang-ups with the Republican senators revolve around defense spending. That's something that was fixed last night with the Freedom Caucus and in the House, so there's a potential for a compromise there. But I think once the president, has sort of committed himself to this, in the same way that he did tax reform, we can expect to kind of keep our base together. Whereas, look at Doug Jones in the Senate. This is a guy who is the first Democratic senator in 30 years.
Conundrum there, right?
And for Schumer to be holding him back on a leash on this issue is just unbelievable. So I think, really, because of the high threshold you need in the Senate to pass this bill, or at least to stop debate on it, you need, Schumer needs to let some of these senators, or some of these senators need to stand up to Chuck Schumer.
I think it's beyond it.
Well, I'm going to channel every single American when I say both parties are to blame. They're both complicit in this shutdown. The political discourse in this country is on par with the characters from South Park, but unlike the television show South Park, real children's lives are on the line. I channel bipartisan rage. It's absolutely pathetic that human beings are the bargaining chip in these situations. And if the Democrats and Republicans can't come together and figure this out, Congress will continue to be at a 10% approval rating, and the entire country will be at a standstill, and the American people will be left.
Well, I see it dragging on a while, Connell. I think to his point, this could drag on a while. The stubbornness, whatever.
Because I think both sides really think that they have a political point to make. They both legitimately think that the other side will take the blame for it right now.
Sure. Right.
Now, a week from now, that could be completely different, and it could be kind of developing in a different way. And one side might say, you know what, we need to get this thing solved because we're.
Well, that's what got Republicans to buckle in, 5 years ago. Right. So
Chad made a key point, though. I thought he made a lot of good points, but in talking about how this is going to end up, he basically said it that there's no way to get this solved without a DACA fix, right? So the Republicans might regret not cutting that deal that looked like it was coming together last week.
Well, that's something the president reversed himself on. That's on the president. Whether you agree or disagree, he did say 48 hours earlier, I believe, and whatever you guys come up with, I'll accept. 2 days later, for whatever reason, we don't know the details, he nixed it. So what's the fallout on the president?
Well, I think that the president is advocating for stronger border security paired with a DACA fix. Those are two things that
he felt that was not in the fix that they came up with.
Right. And look, those are the American people, the pair of them. And I think that particularly with border security, that's not something that the left likes to acknowledge, but protecting the DACA recipients and strengthening the borders are both very popular with all Americans, including independents that Democrats are going after.
You see how in the briefing it was developing some of the White House press corps, some of the lines of questioning were just along those lines of, hey, it looked like you were getting close to a deal last week, and then the whole thing blew up, as a couple of reporters put it, because of the president's comments. That's how this could all develop next week in terms of, because if you're asking about blame game, that's how the narrative starts to develop. And then
when you have people like Lindsey Graham and some others are saying, you sounded great at that Tuesday meeting, Mr. President. I'm not blaming the president. I'm saying that that reversal, whether it was justified or not, the president says it was, did surprise some folks. So the question I have for you is, the Democrats then have to defend this notion, however meritorious, to your point of view on this, that you're looking after the interests of these 800,000, illegal children, or the sons and daughters of illegals, that you're doing this at the expense of a government and legal taxpayers and it functioning. You say?
And we have Chip on the line as well, which is extremely significant. We got 9 million kids here. We're talking health insurance, for crying out loud. You look at DACA, the numbers are in favor of DACA, roughly 70%.
But if you ask legal Americans that everything they know is being stopped to help these illegals for whatever reason.
Well, I think the term illegals is a loaded, word.
But that's how it's going to be spun.
Well, that's how they're going to do it.
Right.
But, you know, so Republicans are going to side with Republicans. Democrats are going to side with Democrats. The 15%
but that's how these
radicals
things
on
are
either
settled.
side
That's
are going
how
to have
these
their
things
control.
are settled.
Well, it's just
on who looks better or worse.
Sure, who looks better, but you know who looks horrible is Congress. And that's what matters
enough.
the most. But meanwhile, they'll be taking a paycheck this whole dang time, so it doesn't really matter to them.
Well, I wonder if the Trump White House knows that and thinks that to some degree we can make Congress look bad. Because there seems to be a theory here that the president sometimes skates. Not skates above this, but is in a kind of a different swimming pool from everybody else,
well,
and takes a different part of the blame, whereas Congress as an entity, not Republicans and Democrats, can get blamed for something.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's true or not.
And you look at what happened to Bill Clinton during the shutdowns there. He kind of walked free with it. You know, they didn't.
No, you're right.
Didn't blame him. So
well, he ended up doing some things during that shutdown that kind of caused problems down the road. Right?
So I think the Republican Party, Donald Trump, will be able to skate. And once again, this is why he gets away with all the name calling, because everyone hates politicians.
Well, but I will say this. I mean, I do remember in the 2013 experience, it said Republicans would rue the day. It would really cost them. And in 2014, they end up winning big in the midterms. So you could make the argument that this is happening early enough. That is, to Connell's point, it doesn't drag on forever. That this is not going to have political fallout on Republicans. Now, where it courses out, I don't know. But if it's short-lived, I think it's a moot point.
Well, and don't forget, you know, it's like Mick Mulvaney said at the White House press briefing, the Obama administration weaponized the shutdown against Republicans. I mean, I remember walking around.
What does he mean by that? By
closing the parks?
Closing the parks. I was walking around D.C. the next day. There were barricades around the Washington
Monument. That's what happens in a government shutdown.
Well, no, I mean, in this, but what they were saying is that they're going to keep them open, that you're not going to see World War II veterans denied from accessing the World War II memorial.
I'll say real quick, the Republicans, I mean, I think they'd rather be having us, people like us, talking about an economy that's strong and a stock market that's hovering at record highs. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
That's exactly what they'd prefer. In the meantime,